Today on the Clean Power Hour Live, we're going to be talking about EVs. Canoe is in the news, BYD is in the news, and the James Webb Telescope has started sending photos back to Earth. Welcome to the show, my co-host John Weaver.
So, Tim, given the opportunity, would you allow yourself to be shot into space at near the speed of light a couple of years before you die, with the requirement that for all of eternity you have to send data back to Earth as a research drone?
Boy, that's quite an ask, John. But yeah, I guess so. Why not? If I'm 98, nearing 100, why not? Yeah, I'll send back data for the rest of eternity. Uh, that's a strange question. Why are you thinking about getting shot into space at near the speed of light, John?
Because of the James Webb Telescope. I mean, that thing is cool. I like these. I like the space stuff. I like it just, it gives you a purpose of why we do all this dumb stuff other than for the sake of, reproducing. It's like, you know what, there's space. It's infinite, or it's near infinite, and that means
Yeah.
near infinite potentials, near infinite opportunities. Maybe we turn out to be giant, maybe we're the aliens and we invade all the other planets. Who knows? There's infinite volumes of material to meet the needs of our tiny little uh, species on this one little rock. And so James Webb looking so far away and seeing things so, like one of the pictures, I haven't seen a picture, I've seen data, and data was of an exoplanet's atmosphere. So
Hmm.
James Webb was able to look at the atmosphere of a planet, of like 4 or 5 thousand that they have on this nice list, and
Yeah.
say it has clouds, it has water vapor, it has this, it has that. Went down the list,
Yeah. Planets in the
and
Goldilocks zone, so to speak, right?
yeah, and I recognize there's lots of filters, great filters you mentioned, and great filters wipe out large volumes of potentially viable spots for life to grow. Anything near the galactic core, just constantly getting blasted with cosmic rays. If anything that lives there, I would want to run away from it because it probably would eat my squishy thing just like casually, be like, oh, what's that? Let's eat it. Oh, cool, and continue on. Because if you
It
can live
probably
in this,
doesn't need it probably doesn't need flesh and blood food if it
you're right.
can
You're right.
can live at the core of the
It just
universe.
absorbs direct from the universe. Yeah, I mean you're absolutely
It
right.
drinks quasars for breakfast.
Something. So I just space is cool, and I often imagine that one thing that human beings might do to ourselves is we will take our little brains, we will figure out how to keep them alive nearly infinitely, and shoot them off into satellites, and use our physical brain as the microprocessor of the satellite, and have that satellite constantly sending data back to the species, and just keep doing it. Like build a giant space satellite launching machine, and boom, boom, boom. It's like cryogenics, but in space.
You really
Call
should. You
Elon.
really you really need to write a sci-fi book, John.
Yeah.
You're really out there, and I look forward to that. But and we're going to show some photos of the James Webb,
Yeah.
well, of what the James Webb is sending back, which is pretty earth-shattering. And we were talking in the pre-show about the contrast between these new photos and what the Hubble was sending back, and it makes the Hubble look like child's play.
Yeah.
Literally, it looks like crayon scribbles of a 5-year-old compared to what the James Webb is sending us. But I want to go to Canoe because Canoe is in the news. Canoe is an American EV maker. I can't keep up with all the EV makers anymore, but this is an American company, and they've got a they've got a very interesting looking van platform. But Walmart has committed to buying 4,500 of these vehicles now, and I think it looks nice with the Walmart star on the side there. And I'm hopeful that they can get some traction. There's going to be a lot of blood on the floor in the EV market, John. Just that's the nature of these nascent markets. And but have you been following Canoe at all?
I've seen their name before. I've seen their product. I think it's a really cool slash weird structure. I like it because it's based on what a battery is. It's just this all the electronics are in the bottom instead of the engine in the front, so it's great. So they just started from the bottom and made wheels around the battery. Um, that Walmart is buying delivery units, awesome. How many Walmarts are there in America? I would like to know. I'm going to ask that. How many Walmarts in America?
Yeah,
So
probably
there's
more than 4,500, but
4,742.
okay.
This
So
is
one
about,
one canoe per Walmart. That's not
yeah, that's
bad.
pretty cool.
Um,
Um, so I
and
like
this
this cool.
They call this vehicle the lifestyle delivery vehicle. It is designed to be a last mile delivery vehicle, and of course it'll be a consumer vehicle as well on their what they call a multi-purpose platform.
Yes.
This is a theme that we're going to touch on in the show today. This multi-purpose, because I discovered another company called REE that we're going to talk about too. Um,
And we'll talk about two or three other EV companies real quick. I was going to add some articles behind this to talk about the complexity of this market. You mentioned blood on the floor. When you're ready to talk about that topic again, let me know. I like this canoe thing. I like that Walmart's doing it, and I like that we just realized there's almost 1 unit per store. That's like perfect. I want to see Walmart doing all EV deliveries. I would buy food. I don't do food deliveries. I just don't. I'm cheap. I like to go walk and move my legs, go buy it. But I would buy it from an EV just for the heck of it once, just to be like, yeah, I did that. I'm good now, and give them a little extra business and advertise it, tweet about it, of course, because I got to tweet about it.
well, the uh, before we continue the EV news, I don't want to keep our listeners on the edges of their seats here. If you're watching the video, this is a photo from the James Webb that you were so
Beautiful.
kind to dig up, John, and it's the edge of a galaxy. Is that what this is?
It's a wall of gas. It's a wall of material. It's within a galaxy. There might be actually galaxies. So it's a nebula, actually. So this is the leftovers, the remnants of a star that exploded.
Wow.
And it's a star-forming region, the Carina Nebula. And it might be the remnants of many stars. Just a gas-forming cloud region that's held together by a weird gravity. So this is a cosmic cliffs image. I mean, they released a whole bunch of them, but this is just one of them. And yeah, that's a cool
Yeah,
one.
here
The
we
the
go.
one that's on the top is actually way closer. It's actually a kind of a illusion there. The two below ones are much further away.
Hmm.
It's just that the top one is super close. So it's just beautiful.
Stephan's Quintet, the Southern Ring Nebula.
So the image on the right, the reason that one's super significant, if you look in the center, we for the first time realized explicitly there are two items in the middle of this unit, in the middle of this gas explosion. We always thought there was one. On the
Mm,
right, you can just clear
yeah,
as day. There's two there. Everybody was like, "Oh, well, you look at that." So that was pretty cool.
and those are stars that are circling one another, or what are those dots? Do we
Pro-
know?
the remnants of they were probably stars way back when that just circled each other, and then one of them blew up.
Mm.
And these are the remnants of those two stars, or at least one of the stars is the nebula, the outside portion, and the two stars that probably orbited each other are left over in the inside. And one of them
Oh,
was probably really big, and one was really small, and the small one maybe is left over. Maybe they were the same size. I don't know enough, but so this is the atmosphere one. This one's cool. So they got water, they have clouds, they have haze.
mm.
Um, it's you know just all kinds of neat stuff. So they don't have a picture of this one. They have a description of its materials.
Measuring the amount of light blocked.
Yes.
So that's cool that they can figure out if there's water in the atmosphere at a distance.
Yeah.
Um,
What you do is as it passes in front of the sun, you take, I think it's a spectrograph or something, but you take a picture of the light that comes from it when it goes in front of the sun, and you can see certain chunks of the light blocked. And these blocked out pieces of light represent the elements that are floating in the air that separate the two. And I remember that from like, I don't know, ninth grade. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So it's just neat. Hubble space. I mean, James Webb Telescope. They just launched this thing. It's in geosynchronous orbit. It's really far away, and it's you know maybe aliens will blow it up because they'll be like, that's too good of technology. The humans have advanced too far.
Well, I hope we get that chance. I sincerely hope we get that chance. Um, I'm cautiously optimistic, I would say. And let's see if we can. Uh,
You want to talk about some other EV companies? My little hypothesis on blood on the floor type stuff.
yeah, I want to talk about REE.
Yeah. What do they
Um,
do?
I was listening to Electrek's podcast, and REE makes a. The share isn't working. Let's see. How about now? Is that
There we
working?
go. We're looking at their website.
They are uh, developing a what they call smart corner platform. So they're really just about the chassis of the EV,
Mm.
and and then you can request one that's the size of a small SUV or the size of a big delivery truck. And they're all about this drive-by-wire technology, which is really becoming the way everyone does it. But there's no mechanical connections, between the wheel and the steering wheel, the wheel that turns the car and the steering wheel, right? It's strictly electronic. And yeah, I'd never heard of them, and it sounds like a super smart approach. They're also really into robotics and leveraging robotics in the manufacturing process, which Tesla has demonstrated that that's a double edge. Sometimes you go too hard after robotics, but they use autonomous robots on the factory floor to move stuff around. And but you can see in this video that they're all about this flat skateboard platform and making it extremely streamlined and maximizing the room that you'll have inside the vehicle.
The individual engines within, or motors, I guess, because these
Yeah, the
aren't engines.
motors.
The motors at the wheel level, I think is cool. The flat platform, I think is cool. I remember the GE came out with this skateboard technology or this skateboard idea
Yeah,
in one of their models around the turn of the century, and that was cool. I was expecting, to have a garage with 5 different body bays that just lift and drop down on my giant skateboard, and that and my George Jetson flying little car thing. Neither one of those are here, but the platform thing is neat. It allows the market to evolve potentially. If I could buy a better tuned work slash sleep vehicle, camping slash work vehicle, where I could customize it just a tiny bit, get rid of the back seat. I don't ever use that back seat. Um, I don't know. It'd just be kind of neat to just buy my board, because then even if you have your vehicle later and you need new batteries, you flip out your board. And I bet you it's really easy to access the board if you can lift the car up, because it's designed as two separate beings. And then you could probably go into a repair shop and say, okay, lift up the body, battery pack is bad, let's switch out a few packs, a few cells, whatever it is.
yeah.
I would assume so. I would assume there's better access. So I like the concept, the idea. I like that there is the concept, because in this little video, this guy says, he goes, it's a new era for cars. They have to be different, smarter, faster, blah 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 blah. Well, yeah, they got to be different, because now there's new opportunities and there's new ideas and rules, and we're going to build around battery cells, and because that's going to be the basic component that every one of these cars has to have, that and tires, um, and so that's the change. And I don't know. I like all the creativity with like e-bikes and the people going around on unicycles, but like electric unicycles.
Yeah.
I think they're awesome. Like one of those people completely dressed up in motorcycle gear, going 50, 60 miles an hour on the highway. Yeah, I can see that. Maybe not on the highway. That sounds absolutely terrifying. But maybe they get their own lane, And on that extra lane, there's just a whole bunch of people who are also doing driving around. So I don't
Right.
know. I like the battery stuff and what it's doing for us.
Yeah, I just think it makes sense to do that skateboard really well and then let other companies design the compartment on top of that and create, some universality. If it all depends on how well they do that skateboard, right? Because right now we have everybody designing their own skateboard, and it just seems like reinventing the wheel. I say do it once extremely well. So time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah.
You found a story about BYD though. We don't talk about BYD much in America. Period. What? Why is BYD in the news?
Well, the main reason I grabbed the article was less because BYD, even though it should be about BYD, but was about how much money Warren Buffett made off of BYD. In the article, which is a very short article, doesn't talk a whole bunch, but it mentions that Warren Buffett invested about 232 million in BYD in 2009, and as of Monday, July 11th, so like 3 days ago, Berkshire's 20.49% stake was worth 9 billion. So 38x was his
Nice.
growth over the course of 13 years. Smart man. 3x per year is
Yeah.
roughly
Yeah.
300% growth per year. Oh, smart people. These are good people. And BYD. One of the reasons I'm sure that they're in the news right now is because they just got headlines as being the largest electric vehicle seller. But electric vehicles also includes hybrids, I believe. So not EV seller. Um, Plug-in vehicle or vehicles that have batteries. Hybrids plus EVs. However you want to talk about it. So
Their website's down.
BYD's
Yeah.
BYD's website.
Yeah.
BYD.
Hard to
Oh yeah,
believe. Uh,
BYD.com. Site currently unavailable. Wow, look at that.
yeah.
So,
We crashed their website.
so one, good job, Warren Buffett. Two, good job, clean energy, advanced energy stock market. You know what? People say, what stock should I buy? Well,
Yeah.
I used to always tell people buy NextEra because that's the stock that I know the best has constantly gone up, even though I hate the company. Like half of me thinks they're the coolest in the world, and I totally want to hang out with them because they've done the best projects and they do everything awesome. And the other half is like, oh, you guys suck. You break these laws and you do these things that are so terrible. But you're building more solar and wind than anyone else on Earth, other than the Chinese. So I'm just going to shut up and let you do what you do. So, but with that, if you're going to buy a stock, buy some NextEra. Maybe buy some BYD as well, because both of these companies have shown multiple decades of growth, or at least a decade of growth, and that's good work.
Yeah. BYD is one of the top automakers in the world. They're the largest EV automaker, according to Wikipedia.
Well,
Um,
not the largest pure electric car manufacturer though. They do make the most vehicles that are fully or partially electrically powered. And electric actually broke this down because the headlines were BYD is the largest EV maker, and Fred likes to defend explicit numbers, and so he broke it down a bit. But they make the most vehicles that are partially or fully powered by electric, which is cool. They make buses, they make all kinds of stuff.
yeah. Yep. We will
For a
be
while,
we will
for a
be driving
while,
BYD cars in America, no doubt.
for a while, they were making batteries for Apple.
Mm, yeah, I believe it. I
So,
believe it.
let me talk about the blood on the floor comment that you
Oh
made
yeah,
earlier.
yeah.
Saw a couple of articles about one Rivian laying off employees,
You mean
and
Rivian?
Rivian.
Yeah, yeah.
Riven was a video game back from the 90s. Riven and Mist. Uh, so Rivian
You heard
laying
about
off.
Rivian laying off people?
Yep, they sent out an email saying they're going to lay off some people and cut back some benefits, some things around the office place. So they're consolidating tightening up cash.
Yeah.
Tesla laid off some people. Another company in the same Rivian article was referenced, AI something, someone who I didn't know the name of. They're laying off companies. So we have at least 3 car EV manufacturers laying off people. Also, at the same time, we have Simon Moore, this fine gentleman from Benchmark that we interviewed. He's
Sure.
always hammering that, hey guys, we don't have enough battery cells. We don't have enough hardware to meet up with demand. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some blood on the floor by some of the groups who were early to the market, who scaled quicker, assuming they could get the battery cells they needed. When in reality now, A, the battery cells have gone up, or B, they might not be available. And if they're not even available, even in a time of high demand, you're not going to be able to generate the revenue to feed the people you've hired. So that's where I wanted to throw out there blood on the floor and saying, I wonder if we're going to see, we got the roller coaster up, and then we got to fine tune and go down a tiny bit and get to reality and then go back up again. If in terms of total employees in the EV industry.
Yeah.
They still might sell out every single car, but still have to fire a couple of people.
Yep, I think it'll be a small miracle if companies like Rivian survive. I want them to survive. I think it's great to have an EV factory in Central Illinois, in Bloomington Normal, but their price point is, I think, too high for the mass market. And okay, yeah, we're not there yet with the mass market, but
True.
you compare the Rivian to the Ford Lightning, and the Ford is, gosh, it's so much cheaper, and it seems to have more features that consumers are going to actually want.
Yeah, but the cheap Ford Lightning isn't available. The only version that's available is the really expensive one that's at the same price point as Rivian.
Maybe.
To the best of my knowledge. To the best of my knowledge, I think right now everybody's
maybe. I don't know.
I
priced a the long range Lightning, and it wasn't anywhere near to what the Rivian was. Now I tricked out the Rivian more, and there was more expensive features like the kitchen.
Come on, that's like $5,000.
I know, isn't that silly?
But isn't it so cool?
It's cool.
You could just the body carrier thing. You pull it out, and bam, there's a kitchen. Man, that's pretty sweet. I want one of those.
Yeah, it is highly desirable. There's no doubt.
I want the kitchen one with the camper, so I can sleep on it. So I just probably added like $15,000 in 2 pieces of components.
Yeah. So that's, but you're suggesting that, battery supply is going to be a major limiting factor, and that many automakers just won't have access to the batteries that they need, and they're going to have to throttle their production lines.
Yeah, it's not me saying it. It's Simon Moore saying it. It's me now saying, ooh, here goes what he said was going to happen, maybe coming out to the real world in this manner.
Right.
Because he said over and over the announcements that these big car people have made, their capacities just don't jive. And he says the guys like Ford say it, and I don't know about Volvo. Volvo might be smart about it, but at least he's been talking junk about Ford, saying you guys are just totally disconnected. And Elon Musk has been saying this. He goes, listen, in 2022, 2021, we're going to be car constrained. 2023, we're going to be cell constrained. I think that's what he said, something like that. Mm-hmm. And as soon as Gigafactory starts rolling cars through the machine, his battery cells. Oh, so here's a cool announcement. What about, how far are you from Kansas? Like, is that neighboring state, or is Idaho in between?
Missouri's in between.
Missouri, okay.
Yeah.
Kansas just had a big announcement from Panasonic, 50 gigawatt hour battery cell factory. The 4860 ones, the big ones, the Tesla batteries.
Mm.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now you can have a battery factory. Somebody who was writing an article said that the Panasonic battery factory is the same distance from Chicago as Tesla in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Or Detroit, maybe. Maybe they said Detroit. And that means they're even closer to Rivian.
Yep. And Canoe. Canoe is based in Arkansas.
Perfect.
So, well, let's talk about some conduit. Why not?
Is this our first solar article of the day?
It's our first solar article, yeah.
Yeah,
If
it's a
if
really easy one.
I don't like it that LinkedIn doesn't let you pop out the photos and zoom in on them, but
If you're logged in, it will. It definitely will. Because
hmm,
I download the images and tweet them. Yeah, you
really.
should be able to. Yeah, if you might not be logged in this
Yeah,
browser.
I'm using a different browser because I have to use a different browser with StreamYard. So we'll just
Yeah.
have to look at them in miniature here. Um,
I just thought it looked nice.
Is this a project you know?
Nope, nope, just random LinkedIn pictures. I like seeing the conduit lays. I like seeing the depth, the 24 inches, seeing the material they're using, how their inverters and switchgear and everything goes down and connects, and then looking at the pads. And I was just paying attention to it because our little project is moving along, and somewhere near the bottom I have a link to our project. Just a couple of the images. We're still doing well. The last time I was there, we were screws. I think the screws are done, but
Yeah.
I was just looking at it. I just saw pretty pictures, and I was like, I want to share these pictures, and it just looked nice, and it was clean. Everything looked very clean. The ground cuts were clean. Damn, look at that. That's some deep. How deep are they going there? That's not 2 feet. That's more than 2 feet. Maybe it's 2 feet and just looks.
Looks more
Maybe it
like
just looks
four
big.
feet. Look at the side. There's a bulldozer next to it. That's
Oh,
got to be 4 feet.
okay.
Um,
So it could be 4 feet. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so it's. I just like looking
but
at some of these
what
images.
this photo brings up for me is
Mm,
direct bury versus conduit. You know, you can direct bury these large cables,
mm.
and it's so interesting when I talk to different people have strong opinions
Yes, they do.
about direct bury versus conduit, and I love the concept of direct bury myself. Just seems like easier to remediate after the life of the system than having the conduit down there also. But
Man, this guy's got great pictures. If you just keep scrolling.
he sure does.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Gustavo,
Gustavo.
good work. Good work, man. Oh, love it.
So is that the company he works for, Power Construction?
Looks like it. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a top link in every one of them. Power Construction Junior.
Jamestown, North Carolina.
Yeah, and if
Right.
you go further down, he shares a company post. So at the bottom post, nice construction pictures. I like it. I learned from this stuff, just checking it out and knowing what's going on there.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so much to learn, so little time. Found a story about California ISO. California ISO moves to enhance reliability, economic prospects for utility scale energy storage.
So
Yeah.
I grabbed this for one specific reason. Somewhere down in the article, they mentioned that as of June 1st, 3.16 gigawatts of energy storage had been attached to the grid, and another zero point 0.7. So that would be at the end of June, which now we're halfway through July. At the end of June, should have been 3.8 gigs of battery capacity, on average 3 to 4 hours capacity. So I mean we're past 10 gigawatt hours connected to the grid. And I have another document, I can't find it. I thought I put it in our share for today, but there's another document that shows that right as of last month in CAISO, so most of California, during the peak period, battery output is equivalent to roughly 6% of all energy being given. And I know those numbers sound small because we're always like big gigawatts, and hundreds of gigawatts installed, and now terawatt is the cool number, just because terawatts and petawatt hours. But having 6% of California being powered by batteries at any particular moment, that's pretty significant in my opinion, because California is going to be the first place that's a large market that's going to have a massive amount of energy storage capacity. And we get to watch. we get to be really nearby. And this article is really cool too because it shows the state talking about all kinds of stuff they can do to make it financially viable and get the projects installed. And the state's doing all kinds of stuff. There's an RFP for 11.5 gigawatts of clean, firm, like 4 to 8 hour of product by like 2025. And we're close, dude. We're in halfway through 2023 in a world with constrained capacity. So I think we're lucky to be watching California, and we should keep watching as much as we could, as much as we can, to see what they're doing with batteries and what the effect of on the grid is of batteries, and how competent we are as grid managers with these batteries. One really smart guy I follow, his name is Cody. He's a battery guy. I can't remember the battery company he works for, but we've like shared his tweets and stuff before. But one thing he said is that just a small amount of batteries starts to immediately eat up all of the pricing variability. The batteries are so quick and so smart and so fast that versus the other stuff that all these weird price bumps that used to exist just disappeared. It's like, it's the first time owning a broom. It's like, oh, there's rocks. Boom. Now the floor is like clean 98%, 99%. Batteries like immediately just suck everything up. And we're going to start seeing people just start deploying them for that, 4-hour window in August, September. And then they're going to have to be required because real quick, that peak period is going to get eaten. It's going to get sucked right up. And then we're in the next stage of battery deployment, base load battery, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that that article quoted the president of CAISO they call it, as saying we're in the golden age of batteries or golden age of storage, and I think he's right.
The early golden age, yes.
Yeah. And I want to mention that here in Illinois we have very generous incentives for battery storage now. I'm going to be having Claudia Morrow come on the show to talk about coal to solar. She's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Development and Strategy at Vistra, Texas-based utility that
big
is
company,
shuttering a fleet of coal plants here in Illinois and converting them to solar and storage. There are special incentives in the legislation we got last year for that transition. But then for just everyday commercial industrial solar, we have $250 per kWh incentive for battery storage for projects that are pairing storage with a solar project. And
like
there's no upper bound. Okay, so you can do large scale, small scale. And when it pencils, which it usually does now, A, because energy prices are going up, and B, this incentive is just super sweet.
Yeah.
The battery pays back in 2 years, right? You're taking the 26% ITC on it because you're pairing it with solar, and then this per kWh incentive is very, very generous. So if you're looking at a commercial industrial solar project, reach out to me and I can hook you up with the experts that will show you how a battery creates value. And the bottom line is it just becomes a way to reduce your power bill, another way to reduce your power bill, right? The solar is great. You can reduce your power bill by 50 to 75% with solar alone. And then you add on that ginormous sponge called a battery, and you get even more. And you get more cash value out of the deal, so to speak, because there's these incentives. So happy days for storage.
Yep.
And we just need more. We need more lithium mining, and we need more alternatives. I was also talking to a company called Rondo Energy that's going to come on the show, and they're doing pure electric. So make electricity with solar and wind, and then using traditional resistance heating to heat bricks to 1600 degrees Celsius. And then you can store that energy for long periods of time and repurpose it for all kinds of industrial applications, generating steam, generating electricity, generating other hot fluids. So it can be used in steel making, it can be used in concrete making. And the point that really grabbed my attention in this was the pre-interview discussion with the CEO named John O'Donnell, was that a cement plant, for example, might have a 30 megawatt electric load, but 1,000 megawatt load for thermal energy, much greater, right? They're burning stuff to make the cement. Unfortunately, today they're burning fossil fuels, but tomorrow we'll be able to use this industrial heat. And there's just a slew of new companies coming online that are doing next gen thermal storage, and it's cool. It's really awesome. The other thing that I noted after that discussion, I looked at the footprint of the grid versus thermal applications for industrial heat, and they're equivalent, right? So our carbon footprint or greenhouse gas footprint from thermal is very big. So it's also a sector that we want to attack. You and I are attacking the grid every day, greening it, and now we need to attack the thermal grid, so to speak. And it's happening.
Hey, you
What's
want to
next?
you want to talk about a thermal story? I'm going to move it in the document really fast, right below
Okay,
your
yeah,
mouse.
do it.
And it's a quick one. It's a cute one. You probably saw this. Everybody saw it. It was all over the news. Just some guy who's using a leftover solar thermal.
You're talking about the Sandia Lab story?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me get this on screen.
There's a little video with it too, but really, here's
Sandia
what
Labs
occurred.
has a special place in my heart, John. Do you know why?
No, why?
Where is Sandia Labs?
Is it Nevada or Colorado or
Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Albuquerque?
baby.
Okay. Oh, that's right. That's where you're from, right?
Where I grew up.
Nice. Okay. Well, this gentleman is a scientist there, solar guy, I think. And I think he works in solar thermal. And he also makes green chili.
Should I play the video, or is that going to be disruptive?
No, I'll play the video. It's great. Well, there might be like an advertisement before the video, but whatever. If you can get to the video, that'd be cool. And really, the video just shows some light reflecting off the peppers and some glances of the solar thermal. But it was just neat that a guy was using solar thermal, which is used for storing often, like the bricks. But your guy was not using. They were using solar electric, so a different level of efficiency. But solar thermal to make green chili, and that's it. Just thought it was neat that somebody was doing it.
Yeah, New Mexico's famous for its green chili.
Yeah, I heard Colorado has better though.
Game on.
What? I'm not starting trouble. Not me, never.
So he's built himself a cage that he puts chilies inside of, and then is he putting a parabolic trough around it though, or something, or what is the?
No, he's like on site at a solar power plant somewhere. I don't know where he's at because I didn't listen to the words. I was just not that interested in that. But if you get the right view, real shortly you're going to see from the ground, you're going to see a solar thermal installation, and at a different angle, they're going to shortly show you the light hitting the units, the peppers. So there they have somebody cooking with gas. Now they have fossil fuels. So look, there it is. So you can see those solar thermal units in the back.
Yeah.
They even did an experiment with the chilies. Because of course they're scientists and they wanted to have a repeatable thing, and they said the people liked the green chili better, and that was solar thermal because it just had a cleaner taste. So it was just cool. He was, literally using the sunlight directly, concentrated to.
That's pretty interesting. It says New Mexico emits close to 7,800 metric tons of carbon dioxide every year from roasting chili with propane.
There you go. Had no idea anybody had actually worked out that number.
So now we'll be eating not just green chilies, but double green chilies.
Green chili. So yeah, just cute. That's it. All
story.
Right, back to the serious work, Timothy.
That's right.
Serious work only.
We are saving the future of humanity, John Weaver.
Hoping.
I have a question, I guess, for you and our listeners. I had an idea. I'm creating a course on selling commercial solar for HeatSpring, which is a great platform for energy professionals. If you don't know, if you're not familiar, check it out, heatspring.com. But I, so I'm creating a short intro promo video for the course, and I had this idea that when you sell commercial solar, in a way, you're selling the future to the project owner, right? Because we really are creating a different future for humanity by making the energy transition. What do you think about that? Can you sell the future?
Yeah, I mean that's part of our pitches all day long. I mean, that's what drives you. That's when you're selling the future. When people ask you about your passion, say, "Why are you doing this?" I know why I'm doing it, because being a banker isn't my thing.
It's less bad than banking. Is that all you can say? Come on.
I got essays and essays that I could go on about why I want. Got 15 years of giving this speech in different forms, and that's what it makes it okay for to still wake up and do it, even though it's challenging and hard sometimes. Not sometimes, every day. Um, and even though it's really challenging sometimes and emotionally, like, oh, that hurts. But it's just part of doing something that really drives you and drives you for the rest of your life. It was chosen as a future. It had to be my future. So,
Yeah. Well, this is part of your future as well. You are bringing us some more photos of your project site in Massachusetts. What's the project called, John?
this is Beagle Club, and it's got a real technical name, but we're just calling it Beagle Club Solar. It's
Yeah,
about
that
one
that
acre.
was a funny sign. Where are the Beagles going to go now when they can't go to the club anymore?
Well, they still have space. They still have space. Uh, this is just a chunk of
The
the land
Beagle
that they
lovers aren't
stopped
hating
using.
on you?
No, 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 no. This is not just a little tiny chunk of their training land, and so this is just the process of using the APA solar units. We're driving them still, testing out a few. These were some of the first ones we put in the ground. This is later on after we've gotten most of them to depth. You can see they're about 6 to 8 inches above the ground. The ground screws are,
Is it hard to
and
get the ground screws to go in vertically?
sometimes, well, not vertically. I mean, you have the right machine, and they just screw in, and they just go straight. But the key is that you have to align the machine with a couple of items, a couple of little settings. But then you also have to be able to get through the ground. And sometimes, and for instance, we use at our site half the spots a pilot drill that's thinner and harder first,
Yeah.
and we use it on every hole. Well, not every one. Some of them we get in real easy, and but we use that pilot to loosen up the rocks about 4.5 feet down at this site. The rocks start to get a little bit heavier, and so we have to fight through those. And so we were using our pilot, break through that, and then bam. So we're moving along. It's further along now. I haven't been there for a couple days. I think all the ground screws are now done, and most of the racking is probably built, or at least by the end of tomorrow, it's probably going to be built. Most of the racking, and so then we'll move on to the foundation of the racking. Then we'll have one or two pieces that we'll lay across the purlins, and then
Yeah.
We'll get close to doing some modules, but we're moving. We're progressing.
25-degree tilt? What's the tilt, do you know?
I want to say 25 degrees because I remember somebody mentioning it recently. But yeah, and I think I was looking at the engineering documents recently as well. That's my project of the week.
Nice. Good looking
Yeah,
project. Good looking
yeah.
project.
Hey, here's a solar panel article finally.
Wouldn't be a clean power hour without a solar article. 23 businesses now marching to 600 watts as high power modules become focus of tenders.
So the purpose of putting this document, of sharing this story, is to show the graph where they show an increasing volume of 210 millimeter solar cells taking over the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool because It shows us starting to focus because there's been, I don't want to say a war, but there's a combat between 188 or 180 millimeter solar cells, which is being pushed by LONGi, who's the
Hmm.
largest module maker,
Yeah.
and 210, which I think is being pushed by Trina as the leader, and they're trying to solidify. 210 aligns with the global semiconductor industry with using 6-inch ingots, I believe.
Hmm.
And so I think 210 is cool. For a long time, I was reading that 210 millimeter cells were too big. But even in this article, there's two cool data points. Well, one data point, another that I inferred. But one data point is that they're now getting really good with 210 millimeter solar cells, and they can make them thinner. So first off, that article, what the image you have there is just all of the 600 watt modules, or well, 550s.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's a lot of neat images, a lot of neat modules. But if you scroll down a tiny bit, you're going to see a great image of the increasing volume of 210. And you can see the gray volume right there. And
Right.
so that's us as we're seeing the large modules start to take over those 210s. And
Yeah.
so it's just neat. It's interesting. And
So
yeah,
we're in the age of the 550-watt module. For
yep.
anybody who's new or newish to the solar industry for commercial applications, most of the modules now being installed are 500 plus watt modules in 2022, right? And like at EDPR, we're installing 585s in gobs. But you see, it's almost bifurcated, John. They go from 550. There's a slew of 550-watt modules, and then there's 670-watt modules, right? It just jumps, right? It goes there's a few 600s here, but we're jumping by 100 watts, and those modules are bigger. It's not that they're just more efficient, right? They are physically larger.
Well, you can also see the M10 versus the G12
Yeah,
on the left when you're describing. And I
yeah,
believe the M10 is the 188 M10 solar
mhm,
cell. I
yeah,
believe that's the smaller cell. Um,
yeah.
M10 G12. Yeah, M10 is the smaller solar cell.
It
So
says here
that's
210 millimeter wafers rose 172% in capacity with large size ratios surpassing 80% and thinning progress exceeding anticipation. So they're getting bigger. I don't see how they can stop this from happening, right? This unification on the 210, it just seems inevitable.
so LONGi's got arguments saying big cells are more, they'll break, they have more hot spots, the voltages don't work. There's lots of science and people arguing, and we'll see. But you missed the most important sentence in that thinning. Here, scroll up just a tiny bit. So go to the paragraph where they talk about getting down to 165, 160, 155, and then 150, and then read the next sentence. Wafer consumption is thus expected to drop from 2.7 to 2.8 grams a watt of polysilicon down to 2.6 even, where just a couple years ago it was in the fourth. So we have
Yeah,
cut down the amount of silicon per watt, not 50% from when I started paying attention, but really close to it. And that's kind of neat. That's part of what's driving down the price. So that when I
yeah.
saw that, I really started to say, wow, 210 millimeter really has a chance of taking over. And all this orange, I guarantee you that's just because of respect for LONGi, because LONGi's 180, 182, and LONGi ain't going anywhere.
I mean, look at that trend. That's a real trend from 2020 to 2021. That's not a forecast. That's actual data. It dropped from 76% to 38% the 166 module.
Yeah,
So it's
166 gone. 166 is out. Everybody knows that. The question is
yeah,
182 or 210, and
yeah. It
it's
sure looks like
interesting.
210, but
Yep,
time will tell.
yep. So I thought that was neat. I thought it was neat to see that. So
Well,
big modules,
I'm
man.
relieved you found a story about solar panels.
Heh,
I
heh,
wasn't going to be
heh.
able to sleep tonight.
Hey, so can we skip the next story and go to the next one because I want to do math and talk about HVDC power lines?
Yeah, I'm all about HVDC. We should spend the rest of the show on
Heh.
HVDC. It's a vital national security thing and just good for the grid, good for the globe. So
So
what's the
I got a
story?
so I got a whole bunch of stuff typed in this doc. I'm gonna slowly read it out, but you can share the picture. It's just a boat, but So first off, I think this is Scotland, Shetland. So I guess that's England.
Shetland Islands.
Okay, Ireland. There we go. I probably get beat up for saying everything I just said. Uh, so they're getting some power lines to connect the UK, HVDC surrounding everything, the UK and that region. There's lots of um, uh, ocean wind interconnection considerations. Like they're going to have power lines surrounding those islands, all of them.
Yep.
And they're all going to be HVDC awesome. In this case, they're talking about a 260 kilometer subsea HVDC line that's connecting a bunch of wind. And it's a $660 million project. So what I wanted to do is somebody was asking me saying, hey, that seems kind of expensive. So I said, I'm going to do some math and just see if it is. And so it's a 600 megawatt line, and it's going to cost 660 million. So that's or 660 million pounds. So that's
Yep.
1.1 pound per megawatt. Now I ran some numbers and I said, let's say it's a 50-year power line, and let's say it runs at 50%. The cost of the electricity just to break even would be that's four hundredths, 4 thousandths, 10 thousandths, 400 thousandths of a cent per kilowatt hour. Now, I could be a whole factor of 10 or even 100 off, and it's still stupidly cheap. So,
Yeah.
transmission is just cheap. That's all I wanted to say is that the cost per kilowatt hour of a 50-year power line that's HVDC and underwater is hundredths, thousandths, or 10 thousandths of a cent per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I'm just curious. I'm curious why we don't see more HVDC happening. It seems to be happening in Europe, especially connecting continents or connecting islands or offshore wind to onshore, and that makes sense. China is going hard after it. We have some pilot projects on the west coast in the U.S. bringing hydro, from Washington State to California. But for the most part, we just don't see a lot of it happening. And
Well, one
um,
reason is that we've been building power plants instead of building transmission. And when you can plop a power plant somewhere right in the middle, you can use your old standard current lines. You don't need high quality long distance lines. And HVDC, because you have to convert from DC to AC, and those conversion stations are expensive and big, because of that, you limit the minimum length of an HVDC line. So in order for it to make sense financially, there's a minimum size, and it's probably at least 260 kilometers, or that's like one minimum size for this site, or unless it's in the bigger network and the reconverter sites are somewhere. So I know that you need a minimum less distance for these lines for them to be financially viable. That's one reason. Another reason is we build power plants. We just say, you know what? Just who cares about building power lines? Let's just do another power plant right downtown, right next to the high school. Keep those kids' lungs on their toes.
yeah, I was listening to Jigger Shaw talk about SMRs, small modular reactors, and his point. This was on the Electrek podcast.
Nice.
Was that look? We've got these coal plants and gas plants and nuclear plants that we're shuttering across the country. We should repurpose those facilities because they have great infrastructure with SMRs. His concern is that we can't completely green the grid with wind, solar, and battery storage. We can come very close, maybe 80 to 90%. But he thinks that there's going to be a market for nuclear, and he just thinks it's good for the economy of those places, right, where there's hundreds of workers keeping a power plant running. Because when you convert those to solar and battery, the number of workers needed to keep those next gen clean power plants running is much less. So I don't know. Do you have an opinion about this?
We do need a lot less O&M, and the workers will shift.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you think SMRs are going to get traction? Because
that's
the point Jigger makes is apparently there's a consensus that the U.S. can't build nuclear power plants. We just don't have the wherewithal because our nuclear power projects have stalled, fallen by the wayside, or just gone completely sideways. There's still one happening in Georgia, and it's sideways.
we can build them. We're just crooks. Just all the places we're in a time of transition, and it's a complex time to build them. We know how to build them. Nobody wants to. The only people that are doing it are just kind of forcing it. So it's I don't know if SMRs are going to come about. I hope we try. I mean, technically SMRs exist, plenty of them. We have them in ships, we have them in submarines. We're
Yeah,
amazing at them. We know how to build SMRs. That's not a question. The question is, will we find a financially viable market, and will these people be able to figure out how to mass produce these SMRs and lower the price of them?
yeah,
Because everything I've read, I'm not no expert, but everything I've read said we went big with nuclear plants because you couldn't go small, because it wasn't financially viable. Well, now we're better at building stuff, and old arguments don't mean anything in the future because things change. They can build these SMRs. Will they? Will they get there? I don't know. We'll see. I'm not willing to bet the farm on it. However, right now the consensus seems to be we can get to 80% wind and solar, and then everything else will be who the heck knows. Well, if that's the consensus we're operating off of, great. Let's aim for 80% wind and solar, and let's see what the heck happens with this last 20%. Will the nuclear that exists now keep lasting? Will the hydro exist? Will we have droughts? Will new nuclear get built? Will we keep 5% gas? Because, if we only had 5% of our emissions, it actually would be okay. Um, what's it going to be? All right, great. Let us get to 80% wind and solar. If we can figure out 80% wind and solar, life is good. Maybe we get to 80% wind and solar for direct electrification, and then another 80% for hydrogen, and we just double up our wind and solar capacity.
So my friend Scott Tess, who's the
Yep.
sustainability manager for the city of Urbana, shout out to Scott. He's doing wonderful things here, like converting our closed landfill, to a solar array. But he pointed out that there's a company, and I just Googled it. It's called Noya. I'm not sure where they're based, but they have an idea to convert these cooling towers, which most power plants have cooling towers, especially nuclear power plants, but other types of power plants too. And you can convert that tower to a carbon capture device, which is pretty cool. So the story was capturing carbon one cooling tower at a time.
Hmm.
And I'll put a link in the show notes. But yeah, I think we'll find new and creative ways to repurpose these old power plants. I I have an idea here in Illinois. We have a power plant called the Clinton Power Station, and it's now being kept alive by incentives. They're called ZECs, zero energy credits, that all consumers and company owners in Illinois are supporting. If you're in IOU territory, so to speak, if you're in Ameren, ComEd, or Mid American, you're supporting the nuclear industry, which is 40% of our grid. It's a big chunk of our grid energy. Anyway, this is I think it's a 2 gigawatt facility, and so replacing that with SMRs. I mean, SMRs are much smaller, on the order of 10 megawatts, and okay, you could do some SMRs, but why not do some of this thermal technology, for example, build a big solar array. We've got big wind farms in the area already, tons and tons of land around the power plant. ComEd alone owns 1,500 acres right around the power plant, but and then there's just gobs and gobs of more land. So we're not constrained by resources that way. It is the economics of how much it costs to construct these devices. And right now, nuclear is not cheap. So not a lot of nuclear is getting built. We just need to keep developing that technology because we need it on Mars. That's where I think we really want to use it. But
Mars, see? Mars and brains in space via spaceship.
that's right.
That's it.
Well, let's wrap up the show, John. I
Yep.
want to encourage our listeners to check out all of our content at cleanpower.group/podcast. Click on the YouTube icon, subscribe to that channel, give us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. That helps others find this content. And how can our listeners reach you, John?
Commercialsolarguy.com. That's our favorite place. Got a contact us page, got a Twitter link, got a LinkedIn link, but you can see some pictures and a couple of articles. I need to update our site. Got to do some website work, Tim. But commercialsolarguy.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here week in and week out. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Take care, John.